Pianobook usually starts with me standing on a hill, maybe preceded by a time lapse of some clouds or something, but it's absolutely shagging it down with rain out there. So I've really got to stop swearing in the first 30 seconds of YouTube videos. YouTube hates it. Anyway, I digress. So instead, you get a 49-year-old man sitting at a piano with a duvet on it. And it wouldn't be Pianobook if that wasn't the case. Today is a very special day. Not only is it Piano Day, which is a fantastic thing set up by Niels Fromm, but Piano Day is also our birthday. We were launched 3 years ago today, and what an amazing thing it's become. The only way I can really describe Pianobook is a mass stream of consciousness. You may or may not recall that it started as an album project for me, which I wanted this community to take part in, and I thought, well, it'd be great if we could all make some sample instruments. What's easier to sample than a piano? Easy to sample, difficult to sample well. And then we all thought, well, you know, people have access to pianos, tend to be of a certain kind of socio-economic group, so let's just make it all instruments. And it is what it is today. And what makes this doubly special on Piano Day, our 3rd birthday, but also because we're at this number of free instruments. And yes, today we're going to drop 3 more pianos to make it. So let's have a look at instrument number 498, The Experience by Mark. The Experience is a Mason and Hamlin Model A recorded binaurally, so we have a binaural theme today. So it's best to use headphones. Modulation wheel controls the panning, additionally using a smartphone and some free apps to enable head tracking. You can, for free, create a virtual piano soundboard that keeps the soundstage in front of the controller keyboard, just like a real piano. Awesome. Amazing, and you can move the head round. I love the idea that we can record music specifically for how it's going to be consumed, whether it's through a pair of stereo speakers or headphones. The idea of creating tracks that have a headphone version and a stereo version. What I find, though, is that Splosh connects with binaural recordings better than anything else. Because of the lack of focus of the sound, because it's all room, I find it easier to put into other rooms by using reverb. Right, so what's this all about? Well, I've been striving to make the ultimate intimate piano for over a decade now. It goes all the way back to 14 years ago, I think, when I made what is now called the soft piano, which is part of the labs thing, and it's just like literally 500,000 people use that piano today. The idea is to create a cerebral piano, something that you can use in drama that's really like it's kind of inside your head. So I don't know if you recall, at Christmas time we made the family grand using binaural technology, the Neumann KU100, aka Dave. Well, I fell in love with Dave so much I bought one of our very own. Meet Dave. And I thought, would it be possible if we could put Dave and some other mics into the piano and surround them with something that makes them feel enclosed, almost like a claustrophobic piano? So I thought head, latch lake stand, duvet. So I'm going to use the monolith method of sampling, which I'll recap on after I've done it. 3 dynamic layers, up to 3 round robins, heat mapped, and felt down 2 sets of mics, the M149 as our kind of far away stereo, and then the KU100 or Dave as the kind of the central, like your head's inside the piano. Right, I've got up really early because the birds, it's kind of nearly springtime here and the birds chirp like nutters, so hopefully I'll get this done. It's going to take about an hour, get this done before the birds start singing. Right, for instrument 499, we have Midnight Upright by Nami Audio, who is Alex Reynaud, This upright belongs to my mother, who wanted to learn the piano when she was a kid, but gave up really quickly. It's been at my parents' house for almost 30 years and has never been tuned since. 2 years ago, I started to develop sample library and always wanted to record this unstable beauty one day. 3 weeks ago, I gave it a shot, and here is the result. So it's a pair of KM184s. If I had a pair of these, I may have used it on the claustrophobic piano, because it's so small, it can really get into nooks and crannies. So it's great for sampling at home if you want to try some really close techniques of very quiet sounds. But anyway, so looking forward to hearing this. Brilliantly, you put it through a Tascam Porta Studio 414 Mark II and through a Boss KM60 mixer, so for a vintage sound, but also a cheap chord organ from Lorenzo. It's very noisy when powered on, but so beautiful when used as a pad with lots of reverb. Another gorgeous GUI. Ooh. So the piano die away, leaving the organ. I love a long sample, particularly for drama. There you go. Cue. Down the bottom, because the organ is an octave under, it's great subtone. What it reminds me of, if we go back to the experience, is if I put some sub bass. Now, it's been a couple of months since I've done the more general highlights that I do, and I don't have time today to do a whole 5 instruments. There's been some amazing submissions over the last couple of months, but I just think special mention needs to be for a gentleman called Keith Theodosiou, who's been such an amazing supporter of Pianobook and also came up with the main theme for Music by 300 Strangers. And he's just created this guitar sample, which I have to say is one of my favourite guitar samples ever. You'll notice I've got a Stranger Things mug. Now, if any of you are writing music to a Stranger Things brief, you have to get this guitar. It's like Andy Summers out of a box, turn it up to 11, pure 1980s joy. So let me mute these extras here and have a listen to the first one. Just stunning. Shameless amount of chorus there. It's just so of the era, it's spot on. And it's nice, this version has just slightly less bite than the Dreams lead. So I would have to say, if you're 1980s, you're going in that direction, this has to be in your toolkit. Thank you so much and well done, Keith. Starchy. So let's see how that came out. Just a little recap of what the monolith system is. It's basically, it does a couple of things. It tells you what to play and when to play it so that you can create monoliths and not have to label up all your samples and put them into Contact. So basically we've got all of the notes being dictated by samples of this guy called Dave. And once you record it, you'll have just a single file that you can cut automatically with these little cutter regions. So you don't have to edit them, you don't have to title them, but what you do have to do is go in and sort out the start points. Now this, I think, is actually an artistic process of sample creation. And for me, cutting too far into the sample is something that so many developers, really big developers, do in order to make piano samples responsive, but responsive in the context of synthesizers. So for me, other developers would probably cut right into when the note starts. Which is kind of fine, but a lot happens in a piano, if you were to look at it in slow motion, before the actual inertia is overcome and the string starts resonating. And so for me, I'm incredibly sensitive thudum. I'm sensitive to those elements of the piano. Now, lower end of the piano tends to take longer to get going, so it will mean that the samples are not consistent but are inconsistent in a way that a real piano would be, and that is, I think, how you get greater reality. Anyway, I digress. All I've had to do is create some fade outs, some minuscule fade ins. These are just little 5 millisecond fade ins, just to avoid any clicks or anything like that. And I've checked out any slight inconsistencies between, say, round robins of levels and have corrected those. But instead of exporting these as separate files, you then turn them into these monoliths, which are single files, and we have created Kontakt and Decent Sampler templates which know what part of the monoliths to grab when you hit different keys. Now, this is a genuine unboxing because Stephen Tallamy, who's we must all be thankful for, has done an incredible amount of work right from the early days with pianobook, has actually created with me this monolith system, and he's sent back this, look at that, fancy with a picture of Dave under the duvet, just amazing template GUI. But also, if we have a look here, you'll see that it looks like loads of different samples, but these are all accessing just the same 3 monoliths, one for each mic signal. Right, so let's have a play. So I've got the M149s, the stereo, the KU100, and a Mix 456, which is going to be retitled Mix 756. I'll come back to that in a sec. So let's have a listen to the M149. My first time. This is where the excitement of sampling never ceases for me. Oh, that's nice. It's not as if the microphone is inside the piano. It's more because the duvet, it's more like you're just not in the room. It's extraordinary. Let's have a listen to the KU100. Oh, that's extraordinary. Stereo image on that. Let's just hear that on headphones. This has been a slow process of what I believe the Japanese call kaizen, just slow, iterative improvements. And for me personally, this is the best piano I've made since the soft piano, I think. Just fits into my aesthetic. Now, what I also did was I summed these 2 signals. So let's have a listen to them summed. And I put them into a box, and I'm quite nervous to hear this because this box was not cheap. Oh, I'm delighted. Wow. So this box, I bought it. It felt like it literally had nothing inside it. It has to be the ugliest thing in my studio. It is the Roger Mayer HD 756. Roger Mayer makes really smart, expensive, bespoke guitar pedals. And this is a rack unit version of this system he developed to imitate Studer or Ampeg 756 tape. So it's purely analog, and it adds a degree of harmonic distortion, compression, and it has an EQ stage, a 3-band EQ. So presence, I believe, is a guitar amp term for high, mid, treble, and bass. Doesn't distort like tape. It has a real fizzy sound that you want to avoid, but it doesn't hiss like tape either. So for me, this just sounds like a record. That's available as instrument 500, I can't believe this, in the video description down below and on pianobook.co.uk. Stephen has also been so kind to make a decent sampler version, so if you don't have a full version of Kontakt, you can download it for free. Absolutely stunning. And thank you to Stephen, and thank you to Dave Hillowitz for creating the Decent Sampler platform. Exciting times ahead, I feel. So 500 instruments, but that, in a funny kind of way, is the smallest element of this. I don't know if you agree. You know, I mentioned the stream of consciousness thing before. I mean, it's incredible that we've gone from this kind of sample project to making incredible sounds out of rusty gates, bagpipes, and then this time last year, the insane Music by 300 Strangers, where everyone came together to not just play on, but actually compose a piece of music, having never met. The Winter Voices thing that we did this Christmas, and the money that we raised for this charity has led me to think there's some real potential there. There's going to be more collaborative efforts coming soon, which I really look forward to sharing with you. Actually getting back to my original idea of actually creating an album. We've been through different iterations of the site too, and just to let you know that we're building from the ground up a third site. This is a necessary evolutionary path that I've experienced with Spitfire. We're now working on our, I believe, 5th version of a website, because the initial idea is very seldom the same as the outcome. Our first website for Piano Book was very much about stories, and that's what gave birth to the name Piano Book. And then it really concentrated on the instruments. And then I turned to the team of amazing volunteers and said, we have to imagine that this is going to have 10,000 instruments and maybe 1,000 samplists, maybe a couple of thousand people making demos. What will the world of Piano Book look like then? And I think that what we've come down to is to focus in on the people. And I would say that that's been the most staggering part of this experience, has been the impact it's had on people, opportunities, but I'd say most importantly, friendships, and I know that Piano Book has created some of those. We have 500 instruments now, and you've probably seen that Dave Hillowitz has created this amazing thing called Decent Sampler, which means they're truly free, as in there is no paywall to get in, you don't need contact, you don't need Logic. And I'd say nearly half of the instruments are now on Decent Sampler. As always, keep contributing and do bear with us. The site is slow, it's a bit funky the way that we have to download stuff. That will improve soon, but we're taking time really getting it as right as it can be for what it currently is this time. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so and ding that bell to be notified the next time I put a video up. This is the first of 2 Piano Day films that I'm putting up today. The second one is going to be the Piano Drop film. I don't know if you've been following, I've been working with a bunch of students and yourselves to rescore a piece of fac-ent or factual entertainment that I fired myself from as composer. So check that out later on, one of those for the efforts of yourselves. Much love to you all. Happy Piano Day, happy birthday, and happy composing with those 500 free instruments. Extraordinary.